With the price of Bitcoin recently passing over $100,000, a lot of people are wondering what Bitcoin actually is. Well, tonight we're going to be looking at Bitcoin in detail, giving a beginner's guide for new investors. We're going to be talking about the basics of Bitcoin, how it works, and why it matters, especially in this world where it's starting to get more and more relevant. Well, let's start off by looking at what Bitcoin actually is. So to sum it up, Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency, which means that no government or financial institution directly controls it. It was created in 2009 by an anonymous entity known as Satoshi Nakamoto, whose identity still remains a mystery. Bitcoin operates on blockchain technology, a distributed ledger that ensures transparency and security. Transactions themselves are verified by a network of computers, meaning that they are very secure and tamper-proof. Bitcoin is a very useful currency, especially in the world today, as acceptance of it becomes more and more prominent. It can be used for digital wallets or in digital wallets. Users store Bitcoin in software wallets or even hardware wallets for security purposes. This is how basically people store it. Then we've got transactions themselves. When a user initiates a transaction, it's broadcasted to the network. Mining. Users can mine Bitcoin to verify transactions by solving complex mathematical problems, and successful miners are rewarded with Bitcoin. Then we've got the blockchain. Verified transactions are added to the blockchain, which brings us very nicely on to the key features of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a decentralized currency. It operates without a central authority, relying on a peer-to-peer network. It has a limited supply. That's because only 21 million Bitcoins will ever be minted, creating a degree of digital scarcity. It's a limited currency, and this does kind of matter. Then we've got transparency. All transactions are recorded on a public ledger, accessible to anyone, so anybody can access this information. Then we've got the security element. Advanced cryptography ensures secure transactions, which is quite helpful. And then we've got global accessibility. It can be used by anyone with internet access anywhere in the world, which is less than can be said for a lot of traditional currencies, right? So these are all really promising features and facts about Bitcoin which are very important when considering why it is so popular and why it is increasingly becoming more popular going forwards. And then we need to talk about how Bitcoin differs from traditional currencies. Well, it boils down to centralization versus decentralization. You see, traditional currencies are controlled by central banks and governments, whilst Bitcoin operates on a decentralized network. There is no body like we spoke about earlier. Then we've got physical versus digital. Traditional currencies exist often in a physical form of cash and digital form of bank accounts, whilst Bitcoin exists solely as a digital currency. There is no Bitcoin notes or coins. Then we can talk about supply. Central banks often have the ability to print more money, leading to inflation, whereas Bitcoin's supply is capped at 21 million coins. It doesn't matter, there will be no more than that. Then we've got transparency. Bitcoin transactions are recorded, as we said, on a public ledger, whilst traditional banking records are private. Access. Bitcoin is accessible to anybody with the internet, whilst traditional banking often requires government-issued ID and bank accounts. Then we can talk about transaction fees. Bitcoin transactions can be cheaper, especially for cross-border payments compared to traditional banking, but of course that one can vary. So these are some of the very important and useful real-world accolades of Bitcoin, and I suppose this is kind of some backstory. Then we can talk about how you can spend it. We can talk about online purchases, where you can buy goods and services from merchants who accept Bitcoin, which is again becoming more and more common. We can talk about remittances, enabling low-cost international money transfers without intermediaries. We can talk about investment and store of value, which honestly, as time goes on, this is probably what most people are focused on, the investment element of Bitcoin. You see, because it is scarce, because the amount produced is limited, it's often referred to as digital gold. There is a limited supply, so a lot of people see it as a value store or something which could possibly go up in the future. We can talk about donations and fundraising, of course, a way where you can just pay. It can provide a transparent way to support these causes globally, as we spoke about, the payments, you can kind of see what's going on. Why would anybody use Bitcoin for payment though? Well, there's a freedom of payment element. It allows users to send and receive payments anywhere at any time, as long as they have access to the internet. We can talk about security and control, as users have full control over their funds with private keys. We can talk about low transaction fees, especially beneficial for international transactions compared to traditional banks, which often have high fees. Then there's the transparency, where all transactions are traceable, that reduce risks of fraud. We can also talk about inflation, because as inflation continues to rise in a lot of currencies, with fixed supply, Bitcoin often acts as a hedge against inflation in most people's eyes, and most people invest in it for that reason. They believe it could continue to go up, but of course research needs to be done for anybody looking to invest in anything. Why do people invest in Bitcoin though? Well, as we just spoke about, we can talk about the hedge against inflation, we can talk about the potential for higher returns. If we've looked at the past 5, 10, 15 years, since its inception, Bitcoin's price has experienced significant growth. Right now it's just over $100,000. That's not a small amount, especially considering where it started off. Perhaps this leads back to the point of scarcity. With 21 million being created, demand and value can increase over time. More people want it, there's no more in circulation, so in theory, the price could rise. We just spoke about inflation. We can talk about diversification, right? Bitcoin is arguably one of the most famous, most popular cryptos that is out there. So to a degree, people looking to diversify into crypto often would look into Bitcoin. It's a unique asset class to add to some investment portfolios if people want to. Some people have belief in the technology itself, the blockchain and the technology behind it, and they believe that things like Bitcoin are the future for global finance, implying that it could continue to rise. Then we can talk about global accessibility, the fact that anybody can invest. It's very, very easy to invest in, and to some degree that can provide people with opportunities, making it easier to invest itself. Now, of course, it's not all good and it's not all easy. There are definitely some risks to consider. Volatility is a big one. Bitcoin's price can and does rise and fall dramatically. Arguably, that can affect its reliability as a store of value. The price does not just go up, and oftentimes it's not stable. It can go up multiple percentage points or down multiple percentage points in a day. People need to be aware of this. This is just the reality of it, right? We can talk about the security risks, as it requires a secure storage to prevent theft or hacking. So obviously you're going to need to be aware of your accounts. If you're holding it on a hard drive or anything, it's all very important to keep aware of the security element. Then we've got the irreversibility, as once a transaction is confirmed, it cannot be undone, sometimes unlike other payment providers. There's also some regulatory uncertainty. Laws and regulations regarding Bitcoin can change, they can vary by country to country, which could in future affect its adoption. And then we've got the environmental impact, as people who mine Bitcoin require significant energy consumption. But what lies ahead for Bitcoin? Well, a lot of people expect more adoption, as growing numbers of businesses and individuals start using Bitcoin for payments and investments. A lot of people think that regulations could increase as governments are working on frameworks to regulate and integrate Bitcoin. Then we've got technology. Developments like Lightning Network aim to make transactions faster and cheaper. Then we've got the broader impact, right? Because Bitcoin's success could, and oftentimes has, paved the way for the validity of other cryptocurrencies and blockchain applications. I think that Bitcoin is a really powerful crypto, and it's a really powerful asset to learn about in 2025. And that's why we should question the significance of it. Let's speak more about why we should learn about Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin represents a shift towards decentralized, transparent, and secure financial systems. Understanding this is crucial for navigating the evolving world of digital finance, and it could possibly offer opportunities for innovation, investment, and empowerment. Overall, cryptocurrency is a really interesting thing, and as Bitcoin has now hit over $100,000, a lot of eyes are on it. I thought it was worth talking about this quickly. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.